All right, welcome back to another episode of the Podium Pusher Podcast. As always, my name is Justin. I'm here with Brandon. We have made it. It is finally race weekend. We thought it would never come, but race week is here. We have survived. Brandon, how you feeling about the first race of the 2024 Formula One season being right around the corner?
Feeling great. We made it. We're back. I would say that so much, but yeah, no, it feels really good. Just a couple more days from now until we'll see cars on the track and like actual, race weekend format, which is cool. It's fun. So I'm excited.
I am super excited as well. And we don't have to wait as long as we usually do on a Monday for race weekend because obviously everything is pushed up a day because the race is on a Saturday. So starting on Thursday, we will have cars on track for free practice, which is awesome. I've been watching the race highlights for the 2021 season to like get myself excited. I think in the past 2 days, I have watched at least 11 race highlights. I think I'm at the British Grand Prix. So that's like 10 or 11 races into the season. So I'm prepared for racing to be back.
That's awesome. Yeah, 2021 season is a great batch of highlights to watch. So it's a good one.
The 2021 season is in the past. We are here to talk about the 2024 season, specifically the Bahrain Grand Prix. We've got some predictions that we're going to make today. Just preview the race, get everybody all excited. Who do you think is going to be on pole position for the 2024 Bahrain Grand Prix?
Pole position, it's going to come as a shocker. I think it's going to be Max Verstappen. Um, yeah, Red Bull had a fantastic test. They look like they're the team to beat, and everybody else thinks so. So that's there's something to say for that. Um, and I think we'll see Max get pole. Last year's pole time was like 129.775, something like that, and I think he'll crush that by like 4 tenths this year. I'm thinking 129.35.
I think pole position gonna be Max Verstappen as well. It has to be. There's no one else. In my mind, I was like, should I joke and say Sergio Perez? But I was like, that joke's gonna get really old really fast this season. So I'll save it for another time when Sergio Perez is seventh in the World Drivers' Championship. But yeah, Max Verstappen gonna get pole. Oh man, there's a chance he goes into the 128s. I mean, that car has got to be a rocket ship. We haven't even seen a quick lap out of it, like a true quick lap out of that thing. Like haven't, they didn't show their hand at all during testing. So it is going to be crazy to see what happens when we show up to Q1 and just, man, if he finishes Q1 and he's like 8 or 9 tenths ahead, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like that's going to be insane, but it's not out of the question, which might be even more insane is that the fact that we can sit here and talk about that and say that that is a legitimate reality that Max Verstappen could get pole by like 7 or 8 tenths and no one would be surprised by it.
Yeah, I mean, I think not only is that a possible scenario, I think it's a likely scenario that, I mean, he clears pole by, I don't know, half a second. I mean, that's a pretty big margin. I think that's probably what's going to happen. So it's it's crazy, but I think his fastest lap in testing was a 131.3 something. So that's what 1.6 off of the pole time, and he was on mediums. And who knows how much fuel he had, or what engine mode he was running. I
Yeah,
don't
he
know.
was just chilling when he set that time, so it's gonna be crazy. But we're in agreement, Max Verstappen, pole position. Let's talk about the podium for the race. Third place, who's going to get the bronze this weekend at the Bahrain Grand Prix?
Third place, I'm going to go with Charles Leclerc. Um, I think Ferrari looked really strong. I think they've got a fast car. Um, I think Charles is going to do well. He's going to have a good race. I think they'll be in contention for pole. I mean, pole being second place. So I think both Ferraris will do well, and I think um, barring any mechanical failures or anything like that, that Charles would be on the podium, on the bottom step of the podium.
I think Charles Leclerc is a great shout. I think you said something right. I mean, I think the fight for second in qualifying is going to go crazy. Like the announcers are just going to be commentating on that. Max is going to be off second place. That's going to be where the real fight is. Third place, I've got Lando Norris, which I think is maybe a bold prediction. I think there definitely is a bit of a step between McLaren and Ferrari. I think Ferrari have really cemented themselves as second place, but it was just testing, so you can't be sure. McLaren had some reliability issues, so maybe we haven't seen their best during testing. So I think there's still something to be said about McLaren. I think Lando Norris, while he does make the occasional mistake in qualifying that has him down from the potential of the car, I think he's really reliable during the race, and I would trust him to get the most out of the car. This is a new scenario for him. He's never really had a super competitive car in Bahrain. Every time he showed up to Bahrain the past couple of years, he's been trying to run around in 15th because the McLaren is terrible. So we'll see. Got a fast McLaren in Bahrain for the first time. Maybe we'll see him on the podium.
Maybe so. I will say the only times where he has not been reliable in race scenarios is when he like has the chance of winning. There's been a couple times where he's like had a shot at winning the race and choked. I think about Russia 2021. Made the bad tire call with the rain coming in and all that. Um, but anyway, so there's that. Maybe, but he's not gonna have a chance of winning this race, though.
Yeah,
Hopefully, he'll be all right.
no shot that he wins this race. Well, I don't want to say no shot. Crazier things have happened in Formula One, but
This is
it
true.
is highly unlikely that he is competing for a victory this weekend. Second place on the podium. Who do you got?
Got Carlos Sainz. Like I was saying just a second ago, the Ferrari is a good car. I think they had a good test, and Carlos has got something to prove this year, this season. I mean, they've already ousted him for next year for Lewis Hamilton. So I think Carlos is going to come out with the chip on his shoulder. Going to have a great weekend overall, and Carlos is a great driver, and usually he's pretty reliable in race scenarios. So I think, and unlike Lando Norris, Carlos has won a couple races in Formula One, so he knows how to fight at the top. He knows what he's doing. So I think Carlos is going to finish second place.
I think that is a great prediction. So great that I made the same prediction. I also think Carlos Sainz is going to finish second this race weekend. I totally agree with you. I think we might be about to see the quickest Carlos Sainz we've ever seen. I think the best part of his driving style is how consistent he is over the course of a race distance. I think he's very measured, very controlled. I think him having something to prove this season, not necessarily a secure seat for next season. I think there will be seats available for him if he wants it, but nothing secured, really wanting to show people what he's made of. I think you combine that consistency with some tenacity and just a little bit of pushing the envelope that we maybe haven't seen from Carlos Sainz. I think like a measured approach to taking some risks and really pushing the car. I think Carlos Sainz could be in for a really good year if he gets off to a good start in Bahrain. I could just see some momentum in that guy, and we could see a really good season from Carlos Sainz. So, second place, I agree with you, Carlos Sainz.
But yeah, I'm excited to watch him. And I'm excited to watch him compete against Charles because if he does have a great year and maybe like comprehensively beats Charles Leclerc, which is possible, kind of how does everybody view Charles after that? You know, did Ferrari, maybe pick the wrong driver to sign longer term? I don't know, but I guess we'll find out at the end of the season, and it all starts on Saturday because the race is on Saturday.
The race is on Saturday. That's true. So maybe it starts Thursday pre-practice. But yeah,
That's
that's
true.
definitely something to consider. I don't know if that would speak higher of Carlos Sainz or speak worse on Charles Leclerc. I don't know how the paddock would
That's
view
true.
that of saying like which driver it had an effect on. Man, I don't know. I honestly I think it would say more of a good thing about Carlos Sainz and it would say negative about Charles Leclerc.
Yeah.
Because I think the opinion of Charles Leclerc, especially across 2022 and 2023, was cemented like this guy is really quick. He needs to
Yeah.
rein in some of the mistakes. Like sometimes he pushes the car beyond its limits. And so I think Charles has to override that opinion somehow. I think the opinion of Carlos Sainz is like he's still lacking some pace, but he's like a great driver. And so I think if he beats Charles, then he'll silence the pace part and he'll be like, wow, he's got pace and he's a consistent driver. And I think that'll just elevate him to one of the most sought after drivers on the grid, and he's out of his seat. So I think we could, if Carlos Sainz has a great season, I think that opens up everything. I mean, there's a Mercedes seat open, there's a Red Bull seat that's going to be open. Like, I think people have kind of discounted Carlos from those two seats, but if we see a great season from him, I mean, nothing's off the table in Formula One. We've seen contracts torn up in the middle of the year, so who knows what can happen if Carlos Sainz has a great season. So I think that's one of the things that's going to be really exciting to watch, and it starts this weekend.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's gonna be a fun thing to watch.
First place, who you got? Who's it gonna be?
I don't know. Just kidding. I think it's Max Verstappen all the way. I think he's gonna easily win the race. You know, Red Bull's on top, and they have been for a while. So I think Max is gonna win this race, no problem. Their strategy is usually on point. They've got a lot of data from the last couple of years in Bahrain, as well as in testing this past week. So yeah, I think Max runs away with it and probably win by, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 seconds at least. We'll see how good the RB20 is on race pace, but I think it's a lock for Max.
I agree. I also have Max Verstappen finishing first place. I think something crazy would have to happen for him to not win it. I mean, if it's off of pure pace, he easily wins this race, hands down. So, I mean, it would have to be a mechanical failure, which we've seen from the past in Red Bull. 2022 had some mechanical failures to start the year, Bahrain being one of those places. And so, with the drastic aerodynamic changes they've made on the car this year, maybe they've built something that's super quick but kind of fragile. So, I don't want to discount that. It's something that's possible. They did have some reliability issues during testing. Obviously, it was all on Sergio's car, not Max's. So do with that what you will. But I think Max Verstappen wins, and it would have to either storm in the desert or him, have an engine failure for him not to win. So I think it'll be Max Verstappen pretty handily.
Yeah, it's definitely Red Bull's and Max's race to lose. So we'll see. I guess what happens, but it's interesting that we kind of don't mention Sergio there. But yeah, I really feel like he's not going to be in play for the win or the podium. I'm just feeling kind of Sergio Perez trending down right now, which is unfortunate, but I think that's the way we're going. So
yeah, I mean, there's nothing from testing in him that stood out, and so there's just nothing in testing to be like, oh, he's really going to bring it to Max this year. I saw a couple articles that said his average deficit to Max was 7/10 of a second per lap, which is just brutal. I mean, that is not good. And you think like over qualifying, maybe that won't be terrible if the RB20 is so far ahead. Maybe that'll still get him third or fourth. But I mean, 7/10 to Max over the cross, like across the distance of a 51 lap race is like 30, 35 seconds, which is insane. And so, yeah, not looking good for Sergio Perez. Unfortunate that, we haven't mentioned him, but just, with the second, third, fourth place being so contested behind Red Bull, like I really feel like Sergio is going to get caught up in that. And I don't have any reason to believe in his one lap pace right now or his racecraft right now. So, yeah, I don't really see him fighting for a podium this weekend. Hope I'm wrong, but I don't see it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where he finishes because he kind of towards the end of last season, towards the second third of the season, he really kind of fell off quite a bit, and then hooked it up, put it back together a little bit towards the end of the season, hang on to second place in the driver's standings. But we'll see kind of if that momentum can carry over, or it's more the kind of Sergio's falling off, which I kind of feel like that's what it's going to be. But
here's something else that we should be looking out for in the Bahrain Grand Prix, and that is the rest of the midfield. So I would throw Alpine, Aston Martin, RB, maybe even Stake and Williams into that bunch. We don't really know where the midfield pecking order is going to be. I think testing didn't necessarily show us much. There's still a lot of question marks around Aston Martin, still some question marks around RB as much as we want them to improve. They're more aligned with Red Bull this year, but we haven't seen them in a competitive session yet. How do you think the midfield's going to stack up over the course of the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one to try to predict. If I had to guess, I think Aston Martin's going to come out strong. I think RB's going to come out strong. Um, maybe Alpine behind them. I think those three maybe will be kind of fighting for that. I don't know, P6, P7 to P12, P13 kind of range, and um, it out of that group, I would say those three are probably my picks for being the stronger teams in the midfield. But I mean, Williams, they didn't really show their hand in testing. I think they've got more pace. And I'm really also kind of feeling trending down on Kick Sauber's stake F1 team. So yeah, I feel like they'll probably be at the back with Haas if I had to guess. But you know, that's kind of how I feel about it. But the crazy thing is it could go either way. Anybody could be in there, truly, and that's what's exciting.
Yeah, definitely going to be something to watch. I think something you said that was really important is like 7th to 13th is going to be really contested between, whichever team is fourth out of the big four all the way down into the top 3 or 4 teams of the midfield. And it's like those teams are so close. You could have one slow pit stop or one, piece of front wing damage at the start that completely changes the outlook of the whole race for the midfield. And you could see Alex Albon or Valtteri Bottas picking up a point that maybe they wouldn't have picked up had that not happened, and that could be worth millions of dollars at the end of the year in the constructors standings. And so, this time at the beginning of the year where teams haven't had a chance to really develop their cars, and you see those gaps starting to widen a little bit in the midfield, like every point is really important right now for those cars. So I think the midfield, might be even more entertaining to watch than the front of the race this weekend. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important for those guys to, be aggressive now while they have the opportunities to, because, I mean, like we saw with McLaren last year, they really turned it around and after, 8, 10 races or so, and they separated themselves. So it's important for everybody to be aggressive while they can, pick up the points while they can, and hopefully it'll put their team on the right track. So
You got to make a prediction right now. Which midfield team is going to be the best this weekend? What are you picking?
gosh, I'm probably gonna have to go with Aston Martin. I feel like that's a safe guess because they were strong this time last year. Fernando, picked up a podium in Bahrain last year. Um, so if I have to pick right now in this moment, I would say Aston Martin. But I could also be convinced that RB or Alpine could be the stronger team. So really feel like those guys are right there, dead even. So
Yeah, I feel like Aston Martin is the safe pick as well. It's what I would lean towards. But honestly, it's kind of sad that we're thinking of them as a midfield team again. They had their little
yeah,
bit last year fighting towards the front, and I was hoping that would continue this season. And it might. I feel like they're another team that we didn't see everything from in testing. So
yeah,
it could be, and we could see something from Fernando Alonso, especially that we didn't expect. But they probably will be the midfield team that can pick up the most points this year or this weekend, probably this year too, honestly. Uh, Tires, got to talk about tires because testing, they had the entire range of C1 to C5 available to them. Obviously, that will not be the case this weekend. Only get 3 tire compounds. They will have the 3 hardest compounds available for them this weekend. What do you think that plays into the race this weekend?
yeah. Well, I mean, I think Bahrain it's a really high degradation circuit. So it makes sense that Pirelli would pick the hardest tires to, bring to the race. I think that absolutely wasn't really a shock. But, we probably won't see a lot of the softer compound, I would guess. I would guess the strategy would probably be mostly mediums and hards in the race. As far as how many pit stops and where the pit stops will be, honestly, I don't think I can really predict that at this point. I think we'll have to kind of wait into practice and a little bit more to see kind of how the teams are feeling. But It should be interesting. There are a lot of teams last year that kind of struggled with tire degradation. Mainly two that I can think of are Haas and Ferrari. Ferrari kind of struggled a lot last year, and Haas did as well. I mean, every time Nico Hulkenberg threw it in Q3, qualified like P7, P8, it was like by the I don't know 15 laps into the race, he was already back in P12 and finished like P16 or 17. So hopefully we can see that those teams have like kind of figured things out. I would say that I think Ferrari looks like they figured it out, but we'll see. Maybe after Thursday we'll be able to kind of get a better picture of who does, who has the tire degradation figured out a little bit more than last year. But it'd be interesting to watch.
I think I like Bahrain's tire degradation because it throws something into the pit strategy. Like there's a chance that the stop is like the completely viable option, but you'll always get those teams that try the one stop, that try and get track position and see if they can hold the car behind. And so I think that goes back into the midfield of like, maybe some midfield teams know they're a little behind on pace, so they leave a driver out longer to see if they can catch a safety car and get a good one stop. Or maybe you see someone at the front of the field like a Charles Leclerc try and get a really big undercut to maybe get position on Max and see what happens. And so I think, there being that degradation and there being a chance for variation in tire strategy is something that we don't see in a lot of races, because so many races are just medium to hard one stop. So I think it's definitely cool that Bahrain brings tire degradation and two stops into play.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a there's a good chance of a safety car, I think. In Bahrain, it's the first race of the year, so you've got like the potential for mechanical failures, like we talked about earlier, and drivers being a little bit more aggressive, so chances of maybe cars coming together. So there is I feel like a decent chance for a safety car coming out, so that also there's a whole nother element into the strategy, and so you don't pit 30 seconds 15 seconds before the safety car comes out or something like that. But yeah, it's a fun circuit to watch racing at, so there's a lot of different elements that are brought into it.
All right, time to hand out some awards, or at least predict handing out some awards. Who is your prediction for Podium Pusher of the weekend?
Podium Pusher of the weekend. We already talked about him a lot, but I'm going to go ahead and say Carlos Sainz. He's got something to prove. The Ferrari looks, pretty fast, and they performed well in Bahrain in the past couple of years. So yeah, I think Carlos is going to have a great weekend and come up with the P2 in the race. So
Carlos Sainz is a great shout for Podium Pusher of the weekend. I think it is going to be George Russell. Obviously, didn't have him on the podium for this weekend, but if he somehow ends up on the podium, then I'll definitely be fighting for this point. But also, I think if he can come out and beat Lewis Hamilton, which, he did, their first year's teammates last year, Lewis beat him pretty comprehensively, but I also think George had some bad luck and obviously had more mechanical failures than Lewis did. And so, who knows? Maybe with Lewis leaving the team decided to move the car in a little bit more in George Russell's suggestions from testing. I don't know. It's a tough balance of Lewis being one of the greatest of all time, but he's not going to be with the team anymore. So you got to think about your future, and maybe you start moving the car in George Russell's direction. So I think George could have a great weekend, maybe get a foot up on Lewis, and he might be the podium pusher of the weekend.
We'll see. I think that's a great prediction, and it'll be interesting to see their dynamic play out over the rest of the season as well. So
maybe we'll see some more contact between them. Who knows? Back marker of the weekend. Who you got?
Back marker of the weekend. I'm gonna go with Zhou Guanyu or Guanyu Zhou. Don't expect the Kick Sauber to be fast this weekend. And I am going to predict that I think he'll struggle to kind of get his handle on the car, and I think he'll finish probably around P17 to P20 in that bottom four in the race range. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm going to pick Joke on you for my back mark of the weekend.
Definitely don't think Sauber will be great this weekend. He did have that really fast run on the very last day of testing, but obviously it was on a
It's true.
tire compound that was softer than they'll have this weekend. And I got the look from it of, they put in just enough fuel for him to go put that lap, and then he went right back on into the pit. So wouldn't read too much into that. I think Valtteri Bottas usually has his best races of the season at the beginning of the year, when he's had all the
It's
off
true.
season to bike and recharge, and he needs a break from that, so he decides to go race Formula One cars fast for a couple weeks before he's done with that. So I think it's easily seeable that he could lose out to his teammate this weekend, and definitely could be the backmarker of the weekend. I've gone for Esteban Ocon. I've seen a lot of things online that say Alpine could be back there with Haas as one of the worst cars of the grid, that they're no engine power, draggy on the straights, too heavy to be good in the corners. I'm like, what the heck are you guys doing over there in France? Can't even paint the car, and it didn't matter because the dang thing's still overweight and did make you go quick on the straights. What are we doing here, guys? Put some paint on the car if you're at least going to be slow. Maybe that's why they added some paint on the last day of testing, is they saw stuff and they said, oh, it doesn't matter. Might as well make it look good
Yeah.
because we're terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
These
so
couple kilograms of paint that we took off didn't save us as much time as we thought it was going to. So
might as well put it back on there. Yeah, I don't know. And so Esteban Ocon, I think, yeah, I think he's the kind of driver that should should they be down in the pace, should he qualify P17, just sends one up the inside in turn one. Maybe he's out of the race, maybe make some contact, get another time penalty in Bahrain. I don't know. But I think with Alpine being rumored to not be great, I think Esteban is the worst of those two drivers. So I think back marker of the weekend, Esteban Ocon.
yeah, I think that's a great prediction. And if something like that happens, he qualifies towards the back, sends it up the inside, knocked out of the race, whatever. The other thing that's guaranteed to happen is he's going to blame it on someone else. I think every time I've seen Esteban get involved in some kind of incident in a race, he's always throwing his hands up in the air. That it was the other guy. The wall jumped out, hit him or something. I don't know, but I think that's what'll happen. That's nothing against him, but I mean most racers tend to do that. But that always just sticks out in my mind of whenever he's involved in something, he's always very animated, throw his arms up in the air. I don't know, very angry Frenchman kind of vibe.
Yeah,
Which is funny. So
it's just the Frenchman in him. All right, wrapping up. We made two predictions for the Bahrain Grand Prix last time we were together. Let's remind these lovely people of what we predicted. What were your two predictions for the Bahrain Grand Prix?
my two predictions were that at least one of the RB cars makes it into Q3. Hopefully, it's number three making it into Q3. We'll see though. So I think that's a solid prediction. And then kind of backing up what I was saying earlier about Aston Martin being my pick for top of the midfield. My other prediction is that both Aston Martins finish in the points and pick up a solid haul from the first weekend.
Those are two solid predictions. I predicted that Max Verstappen will start the year with the Grand Slam. That is pole position, win, lead every lap, fastest lap. Um, he's just going to dominate. I could see it happening just the beginning of what could be a perfect season. So I think he will start the year out with a perfect race weekend. Second prediction is that commentators will not be quiet about the race being on a Saturday. We decided that we have to be annoyed by it for it to count as a point. So I will have F1 TV open all weekend long. One tab with the F1 TV stream, one tab with the Sky Sports crew, just so I can have both and see who's talking about Saturday. So that is my second prediction for the race weekend.
Yeah, I think that's a great one. Uh, I I'd be willing to say that the first thing out of Crafty's mouth on Thursday is something to do with the fact that it's Thursday and that the race is on Saturday. I'd be willing to put a decent amount of money on that prediction right there. But yeah, I think it's a good one and be a fun weekend to watch.
Yeah, if he opens up the stream with "Welcome to Formula One racing" on a Thursday, I'm taking the point immediately. That's mine.
Yeah,
All right, what are your
I'd give
parting
it to you.
podium thoughts? What are your parting podium thoughts for
Uh,
these lovely people?
Parting podium thoughts. You know, it's going to be a long, fun season ahead. And can't wait to few cars on the track, and um, it's gonna be a lot of fun content that we have for you guys, and we're excited to go on this journey for you. So we're really, really appreciative of anybody who listens to our podcast and any way that you interact with it. So thank you.
Thanks all around to everyone listening. It is an incredible thing. I can't believe we get to sit here and talk about Formula One for an hour every week. It is just the highlight of my week getting to do this, and it's pretty awesome. It's going to be a great season. Last year we started in the middle. It's supposed to be the first full season of the Podium Pusher podcast. So what a milestone that's going to be. Hopefully we get to see some of you guys at some races this year. That would be fun. So we're just excited for everything that we've got in store. Brandon, as always, thanks for doing this. I will see you in the next episode and see all of you lovely people listening in the next episode. Hope you enjoy the first race week of the 2024 Formula One season, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Yeah.